Welcome to the Resilient Mindset Podcast, an exciting new podcast by Resilience Queen, Justine Martin. Justine is the owner and founder of the Resilient Mindset, a division of the Justine Martin Corporation. Justine draws on her years of experience and knowledge consulting with clients to develop and sustain a positive mindset. Focused on igniting your passion, purpose and power, follow the Resilience Queen each week as she delves into the mind of her guests, exploring fascinating stories and inspiring journeys.
Trang is a mentor, a speaker for women who are hungry to pivot careers and build their dream business so they can live out their potential and purpose with freedom and fulfilment. Welcome, Trang, to the Resilience Mindset Podcast. How are you going today? You're in sunny Bali and I'm in cold Victoria.
It's so funny that it worked out this way. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on the podcast, Justine. And we're from the same city, we're from the same state in Australia, but the first time we're connecting is in over two different continents. Fancy that.
I know, in two different climates. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm not like rubbing it in my dress or anything under the sun.
And if you're listening out there, I'm sitting here in a big woolly jumper right up to the neck and it's about 7 degrees outside. And what are you sitting on, about 27 over there at the moment?
Yeah,
at least.
Every day.
Yeah. Moving right along, let's get this podcast started, shall we? What does resilience mean to you?
Oh, I love that question to start off this conversation. For me, resilience is about, that state of mind to deal with anything that comes up in our life, because we can't control what comes up in our life. We can't control external circumstances, what other people do, what is thrown at us. But having that mentality, developing an identity and a set of beliefs and a set of skills, you could say, to manage and to be agile and to adapt according to what life, what we experience in life, like that is what resilience means to me. And that's going to look different to everyone depending on the circumstances. But having a thicker skin, but on the brain.
Yeah, that's right. So great definition there. So what's an adversity that you've faced and how did you draw on your resilience to cope?
For me, there's been various different adversities over my lifetime, as I'm sure many people would resonate with. But the very first one would have to be from when I was quite young. So for a bit of context, you won't be able to hear it now, but I am the daughter of immigrant parents from Vietnam. So I was raised with a very traditional Vietnamese household, and I didn't even learn how to speak English till I went to school.
Wow.
So you can imagine, being someone who doesn't know how to speak the English language, who doesn't really understand things like, oh, what's Vegemite, or what, like you don't eat noodles for breakfast? What do you mean? That makes you the weird kid at school. And from when I was, 6 years old, I was already being bullied. I was already being the black sheep because I was the weird kid that other kids didn't really relate to and didn't really like. So that for me was the first experience of adversity, because especially at such a young age with little consciousness and developed skill to be able to manage that, to be able to work through it, that's something that I had to kind of like work out as I went along.
Yeah. So how has that helped you now in life?
It's interesting. I used to would have said that, being bullied at a young age, being the daughter of immigrants, I used to say that was a disadvantage, and that like my success, like me where I am now, has occurred as a despite that upbringing. But now I really see it the other way. I really see that where I'm at now is because of that adversity. And I'm sure that this is something that, a lot of the listeners would maybe relate to. It's like when you go through these challenging periods, then like you develop these skills and you develop this hardness that you didn't previously. And for me, what it was like being okay with not always being accepted, first of all.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, from 6 years old, I was already not accepted by everyone. But I would come home from school and I would still come home into the arms of my mum and dad who would love me unconditionally, who were there to support me, who were there to help me through anything. And I started to see that not everyone is going to like me, you know, like I'm not going to be for everyone.
And you don't have to be.
Exactly, right? Like there's this saying, and I always go by this now. It's like, you can be the juiciest peach in the world, but there's still going to be someone out there who doesn't like peaches.
Yep.
And that was me, right? Like you know, my parents loved me and I had friends in my Vietnamese community, but at that point in time at day school, I didn't fit in so well. And that's really helped me now because, you know, being a mentor, being a speaker, running my own business, like you have to get into a place where you're comfortable with not pleasing everyone.
Yeah.
With doing things differently. And yeah, that's like literally the nature of being a leader is like, you know, doing things differently from others. So I kind of came full circle because I did go through a phase where all I wanted to do was to fit in. You know, when I was in high school, I just craved social acceptance. So I swung all the way to the other side and then did anything I could to please others. I went through that really heavy people-pleasing phase.
That's exhausting.
Oh, my gosh. Tell me about it. It's exhausting wearing a mask and carrying a persona all the time. You know, every moment, everything that I say, anything that comes up, I like run it through this filter in my mind to try and adjust so that it can be received well by the setting that I'm in or whoever I'm talking to.
I run another podcast actually called MS Unmasked. And we talk about what it's like to live day to day in our bodies. And when people say, oh, but you look fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You look fine. And we talk about unmasking and, you know, sometimes someone will say people will ask, oh, how are you today? And it's easier to say I'm okay or I'm good, I'm fine when you're putting on a mask to the outside world and you're not. And it's the same when you're bullied and other things happen in your life. Do you think that's a coping mechanism?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Like, you know, it's so innate in us humans to want to fit in, right? We literally need to fit in to survive, to be part of the tribe. So then especially in those early imprint years from 0 to 7, and because that's when my bullying was from when I was 6 years old, when I started going to primary school, then just the mechanism kicked in to just survive and to fit in. And then that was unconscious because I didn't really think about it. I didn't know any better. I didn't really plan it. That's just what happened by default. It's like we need to survive. We need to fit in. It was only like later on as I got older and I could run my behaviors through a conscious reflection process that I could start to swing back the other way and be like, you know what? Like this could break me. You know, the bullying could break me. It could be the story that, that makes me the victim for the rest of my life, or it could give me the gift of resilience. It could give me the gift of
voice, don't we?
We do. Yeah. We do. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it because, like, you know, when I was in high school, I didn't feel like I had a choice. I was just like, oh, this is all I get to do. Like, I have to fit in. But then as we get older, we can hopefully start to reflect a bit more consciously and choose to show up in a certain way rather than just react in our lives.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. So looking at all the resilience that you've gained and the adversities that you've faced, what other coping mechanisms have you used? What other techniques have you used to gain that resilience?
Yeah. I think the first one is practicing mindfulness. which I know can sound a little bit woo-woo. It can be like that. But, you know, like I mentioned before, for me, I went into this cycle of just reacting, right? Oh my God, if they don't like me, I need to shape myself. I need to become a shapeshifter to please them. But that's just a reaction. That is a default survival mechanism. But until I started to take time out of my days to reflect on, okay, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I believe in? What do I not believe in? Until I started to become so kind of connected to myself, only then could I start to show up with conviction in what I say, what I do, in my decisions in my life. So mindfulness, or even just reflection or self-awareness, it is something that I've really lent into. And at the start, what that looked like for me was simply getting out a journal, pen and paper on a regular basis, whether it was daily at the start, and then it became a bit more sparse towards, like, after a while, more to weekly. But yeah, writing down, you know, like, who am I? What are my values? What do I believe in? And then becoming, just so convicted in who I am, and understanding I'm that juicy peach. And there are going to be people who love peaches. And there are going to be people who don't like peaches, and that's okay.
Yeah. And peaches are about the only things that we don't dehydrate and eat.
Is that true?
I can't think. Well, prunes are plums, and raisins are grapes, and sultanas. So depending on the size of the grape and what colour. But yeah, what's a peach? Dried out. So, you know, you're juicy and plump all the time.
Yeah. I like that. That is so true. Maybe we've just, like, added another layer to this saying.
I think so. We're not a dried up piece of fruit sitting on the the shelf.
Exactly. Like, we are whole, we are juicy, we have a lots to offer, no matter who we are.
So, who are your role models in resilience, Trang?
First up, got to be my parents.
Yeah.
And my grandparents. But my parents, who are still actively, of course, in my life right now, like, they came from Vietnam. Like, they came from generations of poverty and instability and war. And, like, so my dad, my mum and dad both came to Australia when they were teenagers. So 15, 16, right? Like, halfway through high school. Wow. It's a big adjustment coming to a new country halfway through high school. But they worked their asses off, and they doubled down so hard on doing what was required to achieve the results that they were looking for. And my dad, after just 3 years of being in Australia, he managed to get into medicine. Like, what? As if that's not already hard for, you know, anybody, right? So he's a doctor now, and, like, if that's not resilience, I don't know what is. He's overcome the adversity of the cultural change, language change. If I think I got bullied, like, what about them, right? Like, they came from a completely different country, and this was over 30 years ago, when times were different as well. You know, there was less inclusivity, there was less acceptance of different races, different ethnicities, and yeah, my parents are so inspiring when it comes to resilience, because here they are now, and they are blossoming in their lives, and they've gifted me the opportunity for this life in Australia.
Yeah, fantastic. Is there anyone else?
Who else? So, like, because of my background in sports, so particularly endurance, I've got some great idols who I look up to. So one of them's Siri Lindsley, and she's a triathlete an elite triathlete who didn't even get into the sport until she was 24 years old.
And that's quite old for a sports person, isn't it?
Yeah, like, and she didn't even just get into it at 24 years old. She learned how to swim, how to ride a bike at 24 years old.
Wow.
And you know, like, to be able to do that and then become elite, like, the hours that she put in. She's got a book, an autobiography about it. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But it details like the hours and the grit and how many times she'd been dropped and how many times she just would barely make it. She was just clinging on to continue with the training and the expectations. Yeah, she made it as an elite triathlete. And I think that sport is something that is such a physical, tangible example of resilience, because you either make it or you don't, right? Like you either do the training and do the race or do the competition, or you don't. You either get fit or you don't. And I think that was my avenue into developing more resilience, more discipline, more high performance standards as an adult. It's actually through the avenue of sport.
Wow. How do you cope with setbacks?
Such a good question. Two parts. The first part is allowing the emotions and allowing the acknowledgement of what has happened.
Yeah.
And I used to skip this part. I used to bypass this because I was like, I just needed to be positive, just move on, just continue moving forwards. But then that would create like this buildup of energy inside of me that I'd numbed out. And then that eventually became problematic in its own way. But for example, I just think about last year. I did a talk last year and it was to a group in person. It was also getting streamed online. And halfway through this talk, someone who was on the online stream who thought that they were on mute but weren't, your face already, I know, they said out loud, "Ugh, what a load of crap, seriously." And my heart sunk, my stomach sunk. I wanted to disappear into the ground. I wanted to just never. I actually was like, what am I doing? Like, I questioned my entire identity and career as a speaker. I was like, I'm a load of crap. Like, people don't want to listen to me. They thought my talk was terrible. And that to me was an example last year of that night. I came home, I cried, I was upset, I was shaken up. But then the next day I brought out my journal and I did that mindfulness, right? Like I connected with, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's my intention? What are the learnings I can get from this? What is the gift that this situation has given to me as an opportunity? How can I improve for next time? And then I could move forwards and actually use that setback as a launch board for the next one, for my next, progression or my next achievement.
And remember, we're not all peaches to everyone.
Yes, I had to remind myself of that as well, yeah. So the two steps, the first one, let it out. Like I allowed myself to cry. I allowed myself to feel shaken up. And then the next day I kind of took a more logical approach and I was like, all right, what's the gifts that I can receive from this? What is the opportunity that is going to come out of this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That is. I mean, you could have sat there and gone, "Oh, woe me," and never done anything again, but instead, empowering yourself.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing, right? Like, that's part of the resilient mindset is not neglecting that we are still humans with emotions. Not to say that, everything is always good and everything always has a positive. So allowing our emotions to come through, but then also being able to rise up above that, the fluctuations of emotions, and rising above, the why me thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, why did this happen to me?
I've had
the
those
world's
thoughts.
Against me. Yeah, same. I mean, we all have them, right?
If I sat there and thought, too much about what I've been through, with the MS and then heart surgeries and then 3 cancers at once and 2 other blood conditions, I'd be sitting in the corner rocking, why me?
Yeah.
But, there is a bigger picture. And why not me? What makes me any different to the people? So, mindset is huge with that. So what are you doing at the moment to practice self-care and personal wellness? So we've spoken about mindfulness. What else are you doing to practice self-care?
So the first thing,
in Bali.
oh yeah, just sitting on the beach, sipping like my coconut juice. Interestingly, I think my response to this kind of surprises some people. So, so many things that I could share, but one of them for me is the act of being disciplined. So being disciplined with my morning routines of the mindfulness, of the exercise, of eating well, going to bed at the right time. The act and the practice of discipline for me is self-care. And I actually really reflected on this recently. The reason why being so disciplined and having that standard that I set for myself and then following through with that standard, the reason why that's self-care is because of how it leaves me feeling afterwards. Like I feel empowered. I feel proud of myself. I love myself. And then of course, naturally, when you're disciplined with any practice, then you get results, right? And then when you get results, you get even more proud. You have more self-respect for yourself. It's like if you had a boss or a friend and they kept breaking promises to you, then you would probably lose respect for them. Same as yourself. When we honor our own commitments and our own promises to ourselves, we actually respect ourselves more. That's right. I realized this the other day because I went through a lull. I went through a phase not that long ago where I had this really low self-worth and these thoughts about myself, like, why am I like this? Like, what's wrong with me? Why do people not like me? I was going through this phase. And then I landed in this place of, you know what? Like, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is how I feel about myself. And why am I projecting my own insecurities? Where in my life have I allowed leakages in my own self-love and self-honor and honoring my own commitments? So I was like, all right, I need to tighten up these areas. I've let my eating go. I've let my exercise go. And then when I jumped back onto the horse, it felt so much better and I could have so much more self-love.
Yes.
I was caring for myself more.
And that's the thing, like I teach self-care to my clients and in workshops on why it is vitally important to look after yourself. Now, I'm a mum, I'm a grandma now, but, I've been through all the stages of what your kids do, and mums tend to put themselves second rather than putting themselves first. And then there's that whole build-up of resentment because your needs aren't being met, and then you become more tired, more grumpy. The world becomes a bitter place. And even if you haven't got kids and, work is becoming a priority and you're not taking care of your self-needs, you're no good for anyone. That's why, like, when you fly, the air hostess stands up there at the front and says, put your own oxygen mask on first. Because you're going to be cactus otherwise trying to help anyone else, aren't you? Yeah. And that's the same in day-to-day life. Take care of your self-care first. And self-care doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Like you said, going to bed at a reasonable time. Did you know that for every hour that you go to bed and sleep before midnight equates to 2 hours after midnight in quality? Ooh. So if you're going to bed at 9 o'clock instead of midnight, you're getting 6 hours of quality rest.
Yeah.
Rather than waiting until midnight to go to bed. The food that we put in our mouths at a cellular level, we are refueling our bodies. We are refueling the cells to get optimum performance for everyday life. And without even being, an athlete, professional athlete, we need the best fuel into our system to have optimum performance throughout the day. So many of those things we've spoken about on the Resilience Mindset podcast before, and Trang, you've just, resonated them as well. So what's your favourite movie that features a person's inner strength to get back up?
Oh, I need to think about this one, actually.
So while you're thinking, movie. Someone the other day said Shrek.
Oh, so classic.
We'll take all types of movies on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, my logical brain is like every movie's got to have the hero, like the hero's journey, every single movie. But what movie stands
Well,
out
that's
to
American, because a lot of Australian movies don't, and they don't end on happy endings. So
Ugh,
American movies tend to end happily. Australian movies don't. They're more realistic. But I have noticed in
true.
Hollywood lately that there has been some movies, and it's like, oh my God, that ended not the way I thought it was going to be.
Mm,
Unlike
yeah.
the Hallmark movie, of course, they always end happy.
We need that happy ending.
Yeah.
Movies. Okay. This probably doesn't help. I haven't watched any movies for a long time. If I think back to like a classic, and I'm going to say it, very classic, a little bit cliche, Titanic, one of
Yeah.
my favorite classic movies. Rose,
Yes.
who went against what her family told her what she should be doing, who listened to her heart instead of just her mind of what was most viable, what was most logical, what was the most smart investment. And I think that actually really resonated with me as a young girl when I was watching that movie. Also the love story, we all want that. But the character development of her following her heart and then going out there and pursuing that really gave me permission to do that as well. And
Against
like
all
mine
the
looks
odds.
sorry.
Against all the odds that she was
Yeah.
facing, although she was from a privileged background, she
Yeah.
was looking at a life that wasn't so privileged if she'd stayed with Jack.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then dealing with parents as well, because that was a big thing for me. Like my parents, best intentions, but like, traditional strict parents. So like that really resonated with me of like, you know what? Like I'm going to still hold my ground, I'm going to stand my ground. And even though sometimes you might feel like you're getting like beaten down in a way, like you could say that by family or whatever it might be, it's like, no, I'm going to use this and turn it into strength. And I love that.
Fantastic. What's a quote that you live by?
Oh, one by Viktor E. Frankl. So he's a Jewish Holocaust survivor. And after 3 years of being in concentration camps before the war ended, he has said this, and I love it so much. Everything can be taken from man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, which is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, the ability to choose one's own way.
Like that.
And that I think actually, yeah, I didn't intentionally share it for this reason, but that ties in with what we're talking about so closely, isn't it? It's like no matter what life throws at you, no matter what life circumstances are, we still have power and control. We have power over what's that?
We all have choice.
Yeah.
We can choose to get up in the morning, or we can choose to stay in bed. We can choose to be positive, or we can choose to be negative.
Yeah.
We all have choice.
That's it. We have that power. We have that choice. And
So,
that's the one thing that we So I was going to say, yeah, that's the one thing that we have control over. So let's use and make the most of it.
Yeah. What's one job or position that you've loved the best, and why?
Oh, honestly, can I say the one that I'm in now? Am I allowed to say that?
You can.
Well, like we alluded to before, I am in Bali at the moment, but I'm only freshly here. Like I only landed 6 days ago, so I haven't even been here for a week yet, and I don't
suitcase yet.
Pretty much, I'm just settling in, and we were saying this before we started recording. I don't have a return ticket. Like I am here for who knows how long, and I'm really using this chapter of my life as life is an adventure, like I want to explore this playground. And the reason why I get to do that is because I guess the job or the role that I'm in now as a mentor, as a speaker, predominantly online, it gives me that flexibility, gives me so much freedom whilst also doing what I love, creating impact, spreading a message in the way that I love.
That's fantastic. Who are the three most influential people in your life?
Okay, one has got to be my current life and business mentor. So shout out to Jen Spiegel. I'm working with her at the moment and have done for the whole of this year. And she's like, yeah, rubbed so much off on me in beautiful ways. Just the way that she thinks, the way that she do things, her heart, you know, how big her heart is and how she's led by her heart. So that's one. Number two, I would have to say is so it's actually funny, like we recently separated, but my partner from over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I really want to give credit and I really want to share the love because, 10 years, he's taught me so much. He's shared so much with me. He's inspired me to rise up to a place to become someone who I just wouldn't have been otherwise. So I really want to honor that. And then the last one, I'm trying to think. These are all like people in my personal life. I'm thinking if there's any like celebrities or anyone. Actually, yes, there is. I don't know if anyone's heard of Robin Sharma. Robin Sharma. Think of him as a thought leader, similar to like Tony Robbins, but yeah, maybe not as well known. But he's got incredible books. He's got a book that's called The Leader Who Has No Title. He's got a book recently called The Everyday Hero Manifesto, meaning that everyone, no matter who you are, can be a hero every day. And I've like binge read all of his books. I just consume everything that he has to share because it is so beautiful. So impactful.
Fantastic. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, yes. This one comes very easily to me. The lines that you are currently operating in your life, remember, they're not static. You can move those lines.
Like that one. I like that one a lot. What are 3 books that you'd recommend to my audience and why?
Oh, okay. First one. Written by Viktor E. Frankl, so who I just mentioned before about that quote. So it's called Man's Search for Meaning. And it's written by him and an account of his time in these concentration camps. And yeah, if there's anything that can be more like adverse, that would be it. And he talks about the stories, and it's such a good read, but also the incredible learnings that have come out of that. So it's a very captivating book. So that's one. Number 2. One that jumps out with me has got to be Will by Will Smith. And I know, Will's been hot in the media over the last year, but his book and who he is and how he's gotten to where he is now, man, like, is it inspirational? Like, I think going against the odds, putting in the work, showing up day after day to get to where he is now. Wow. So that's another one.
Yep.
And then last one, it's funny, like, I do read a lot of books, but I can never think of them as on the spot.
That's okay. Two's good. Two's good. Some people struggle to get one, so I'm impressed. 2.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I think it's got to be Brené Brown.
Yeah.
Any of her books, really, like any of them. She talks about, courage and vulnerability and like resilience at a high level.
And authenticity as well.
Yes. All of that ties in with each other. So Brené Brown, huge fan of her.
Yeah, same. She's on my bucket list to meet one day. Yes. What's one question you wish that I'd asked you, and how would you have answered?
Oh, one question that I wish you would have asked me. I think you asked me a really great question about the advice I'd give my 18-year-old self. I love that question. One that you haven't asked. has got to be kind of like what I believe is the purpose of life, or what I believe is the meaning of life. Because that's something that I talk about a lot, right? Like the purpose of life. And I don't believe that there is one purpose for life. I don't believe there's one meaning to life. I believe it's different for everyone, because there's a saying, the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. Mm-hmm. So if we have purpose in our days, whatever that looks like for you, then that's what gives you joy and fulfillment and determination in life. And for me, my purpose in life is to experience life to the utmost, like make the most of this human experience, like make planet Earth my playground, go traveling, see new sights, eat new foods. That's why I'm here in Bali now. It's like I really want to explore, but also to leave the world a better place than how I was born onto it. I really, that if I get to my final day and I've like left the world even just a slightly better place, then my job's done.
I'm sure you will.
Thank you, Justine. Thank you.
Now let's get into some fun, quirky questions. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
Oh, okay. I'd have to invest some of it probably into property, into shares. I'll take it to go traveling. So I'm traveling right now. I'll continue traveling, and then maybe I'll enjoy like a little bit more luxury. And I would donate like a regular amount into my favorite charities, which are some animal sanctuaries in Victoria.
Awesome. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh. Melbourne. It's home.
Home?
Yeah.
If only it was warmer.
In some autumn and Melbourne in autumn and spring, and then Bali in winter.
I'm hearing you. What was your favourite subject in school and why?
My favourite subject was maths.
Really?
It actually was. But you know why? Because I got extra tutoring for maths. So I was the kid who knew her times tables before anyone else. I knew everything before the teacher even taught it. So I felt really good about myself doing it, and it came easy to me. Maybe I should have become an accountant or something. Maybe that's my true calling.
Okay, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. What's your favourite pizza?
You know, capricciosa, I think that's what it's called. It's like got all these like roasted vegetables, you know, eggplants, like olives, capsicum. Love that.
Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, wine or beer?
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate?
I joke about this. I have 15-year-old taste buds, so I don't like anything that's too bitter, and that includes coffee or any alcohol. So I'm literally like a 15-year-old, but I'll take the hot chocolate with a marshmallow, please.
Right. What's your favourite food?
Italian. Pasta or pizza.
Right. And what's your favourite colour?
Pink.
I've got about 5 different favourite colours because, you know, why do you have to have just one?
Yeah,
but
true.
That's the artist coming out in me. What's your favourite music?
It's actually changed. So my answer only maybe 6 months ago would have been like electronic dance music. I'm a bit of a festival rat. When, you know, I'm in bed on any given Friday at 8 p.m, but when there's electronic dance music festivals, I'll be there in the mosh pit. But now I'm actually really enjoying just traditional cultural music like drums and beats and, yeah, rhythmic music. It really gets me in the zone.
That's good. So, Trang, how can people, my listeners, find you online?
Yeah, for sure. I'm most active on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Trang Cess Nguyen. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful. I'm sure the spelling will be put in the show notes, but in case, TrangCessNguyen. That's where I'm most active. And then if you go there, then you'll be able to find resources anywhere else, like my website, podcast, Facebook, wherever else you live online.
And they'll all be in the show notes as well, listeners, so you'll be able to either pop on, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you'll be able to look in those ones, or if you're on Justine Martin Corporation YouTube channel, you'll be able to see our video on there, the vlog, and also with all the with the show notes there as well. And you'll see that Tran is sitting there in a lovely summer dress, and I am sitting here rugged up to the nines with the heater going. So I would like to thank you today for being on the Resilience Mindset podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Like, it's such a gift to have this conversation and be able to share it with others. So thank you, Justine.
You're welcome. And remember, listeners, you know the drill. Until next time, you stay resilient. In her mid-20s, Trang experienced a quarter-life crisis that led her to leave the sports industry so she could help women, not just as athletes, but as human beings. Now, Trang is determined to help others step into their greatest power and thrive in their lives of impact, because ultimately she believes that when enough individuals are thriving, then humanity will thrive. And when humanity thrives, then the world can thrive for all forms of life and future generations.
With over 11 years public speaking expertise, Justine thrives on delivering a powerful and empowering keynote to audiences of all sizes. From a packed room of 500 people to an intimate gathering of 50 people, Justine will command the room with her inspiring journey and engaging anecdotes. Email hello@justinemartin.com.au to book Justine for your next event. We hope you enjoyed the Resilience Mindset podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast to get your weekly fix listening to Resilience Queen Justine Martin. Follow Justine on social media at Resilience Mindset or log on to justinemartin.com.au. And until next time, remember, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient.